My uncle announced at the family reunion, "I'm selling your grandmother's farm. You kids don't deserve it." Everyone nodded except me. I asked, "Did you check who's listed on the current deed?" He laughed. "Of course, it's in my name." I handed him the county records. It wasn't. I'd been driving to Grandma's farm every Sunday for 5 years when she pulled me aside one afternoon and asked me a question that would change everything. "Jake," she said, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, "what do you think Frank's gonna do with this place when I'm gone?" We were sitting on her porch, March 2019. The fields stretched out green and endless, the barn standing crooked but proud against the horizon. She was 78, still sharp, still strong enough to work the garden and feed the chickens and lecture me about not settling down. "I don't know, Grandma." "Yes, you do." I looked at her. "He's going to sell it." She nodded slowly. "Been getting calls from developers for 3 years now. They want to put up a shopping center. Frank thinks I don't know, but I hear him on the phone sometimes when he visits. 'Just wait,' he tells them. 'Give me time.'" My stomach turned. "Grandma, I'm not stupid, Jake, and I'm not sentimental about death. I know what's coming." She set down her mug. "But I need to know something. If I gave you this farm, all of it, legal and binding, would you keep it?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Even if it meant going against the whole family?" "Yes." "Even if they hated you for it?" "Grandma, I come here every week. I fix your fences. I mow your fields. I care about this place. If Frank sells it, everything you and Grandpa built disappears, gets paved over for a parking lot." She studied my face for a long time. Then she smiled. "Good. I'll call Martin tomorrow." Martin Chen had been the family lawyer since before I was born, handled Grandpa's will when he died in 2005, handled property disputes and business contracts and every legal thing the family needed for 30 years. 2 weeks later, Grandma called me back to the farm. Martin was there. So was Dr. Patricia Hoffman, Grandma's physician of 12 years. "We're transferring the deed," Grandma said simply. "Martin's drawn up the paperwork. Patricia's here to certify I'm mentally competent to make this decision. You're going to own this farm, Jake, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't tell anyone. Not yet. I want to see what Frank does, whether he'll honor my wishes or try to cash out the second I'm gone. You really think he'd? I know he will, and I want him to show everyone exactly who he is." We signed the papers that day. Grandma transferred the full 127-acre property, house, barn, fields, everything, into my name. Martin witnessed it. Dr. Hoffman certified Grandma's mental capacity. We filed it with the county clerk's office 3 days later. Official, legal, irreversible. And then we waited. Grandma died on November 3rd, 2021. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and brutal. She'd known for 6 months but told no one except me and Dr. Hoffman. Didn't want the fuss, she said. Didn't want Frank circling like a vulture. The funeral was massive. Every cousin, aunt, uncle, and family friend packed into St. Joseph's. Frank gave a beautiful eulogy about how much she meant to him, how she'd taught him the value of family and hard work. I sat in the third row and said nothing. At the wake, Frank pulled me aside. "I'm the executor of the estate," he said. His cologne was too strong, his suit too expensive for a man who claimed to be struggling. "There's going to be a lot to sort through. The farm, her accounts, personal items. It'll take time. I'm sure you'll handle it well." "I will. And Jake?" He gripped my shoulder. "I know you were close to her. If there's something specific you want, a photo, a piece of furniture, let me know. Family comes first." I nodded. "Thanks, Uncle Frank." He had no idea. For the next 18 months, I watched Frank operate. He moved into Grandma's house 2 weeks after the funeral. Just temporarily, he told everyone, until we figure out what to do with the property. He stopped maintaining it almost immediately. The barn's roof started leaking. I offered to fix it. Frank said no. Too expensive. Not worth it. The fences broke. I offered to replace the posts. Frank said no. We're selling anyway. Why bother? The fields grew wild. I offered to mow. Frank said no. Let it go. The developer doesn't care. Every Sunday, I still drove out there, walked the property, took photos of the decay, documented every broken promise, every neglected corner, every sign that Frank was letting Grandma's legacy rot so he could justify selling it to the highest bidder, and I waited. The family reunion happened on July 15th, 2023. 40 people in Grandma's backyard, burgers on the grill, kids running through the overgrown fields, everyone pretending everything was fine. Frank stood up at 3:47 p.m. with a glass of lemonade raised like he was proposing a toast. "I want to talk about the farm," he said. The chatter died. "It's been in the family for 80 years. Grandma and Grandpa built something incredible here, but times change. The property taxes are killing me. Maintenance costs are through the roof, and I just got an offer I can't refuse." My Aunt Sarah, Frank's wife, nodded along like this was rehearsed. "Frank's been managing this property for years. He deserves to make the decision that's best for everyone. A developer wants to buy it," Frank continued. $2 million. They're going to put in a shopping center, restaurants, retail, jobs for the community. Cousin Tim raised his hand. "What about keeping it in the family?" "I wish we could," Frank said, his voice dripping with false regret. "But none of you help. You show up for Sunday dinners and act like you own the place, but when something breaks, when bills come due, I'm the only one dealing with it." That's when I spoke. "You've been managing it into the ground." The backyard went silent. Frank's eyes snapped to me. "What was that, Jake?" "Nothing." "No, say it louder. Let everyone hear what you think." I stood stood up. I said you've been managing it into the ground. The barn's roof is collapsing. The fences are broken. Half the fields are so overgrown they're useless. This place looks like shit because you stopped caring the day Grandma died. That's because nobody helps. Frank's voice rose. You want to criticize? When's the last time you lifted a finger around here? Every Sunday for 5 years. I offered to fix the barn. You said no. I offered to mend the fences. You said no. I offered to mow the fields. You said no. You wanted it to look like this so you could justify selling it. How dare you? Did you actually read the will? I asked. Frank blinked. Of course I read it. I'm the executor. I'm not an idiot. And you checked the deed? At the county office? Why would I need to check? He laughed, looked around at the family like I was crazy. The farm's been in my name since she died. I'm the executor. That's how estates work. You're absolutely sure the deed is in your name? Positive. He took a long drink of lemonade. Stop trying to cause trouble, Jake. You're embarrassing yourself. I reached into my bag, pulled out a manila folder, set it on the picnic table. What's that? Frank asked. County records. I pulled them yesterday afternoon at the clerk's office. His smile faltered, just slightly. You're bluffing. Open it. He grabbed the folder, yanked out the papers. I watched his face change, tan to pale, confident to confused, confused to horrified. This is fake, he said. It's not. It's certified. See the county clerk's stamp in the bottom right corner? That's Deborah Martinez's signature. She's been the clerk for 9 years. Frank's hand started shaking. This doesn't make any sense. The will said I was executor. The will said you were executor of the estate. It didn't say you inherited the property. Those are two very different things. Aunt Sarah grabbed the papers from Frank's hands. Read them. Her mouth fell open. Whose name is on the deed? Cousin Tim asked quietly. Mine, I said. The backyard erupted. That's impossible, Frank shouted. Your grandmother would never. She did. 3 months before she died, April 2nd, 2021. She transferred the full deed to the property, had it witnessed by Martin Chen and notarized by Claire Stevenson at First National Bank, filed it with the county on April 5th. Why didn't anyone know? Sarah demanded. Because Grandma asked me to keep it quiet. She wanted to see what Frank would do, whether he'd honor her wishes to keep the farm in the family, or whether he'd try to sell it the second she was gone. This is fraud! Frank slammed his hand on the table. Lemonade sloshed everywhere. You manipulated an old woman. She was senile. She wasn't senile. I pulled another paper from my bag. This is a cognitive assessment from Dr. Patricia Hoffman, dated April 1st, 2021. It certifies Grandma was fully mentally competent when she made the decision to transfer the deed. Dr. Hoffman has been Grandma's primary physician for 12 years. You want to argue she didn't know what she was doing, you'll have to prove it in court. Frank fumbled for his phone. I'm calling Martin. He'll straighten this out. Martin was the one who filed the paperwork. He's known about this for 2 years. That's impossible. Martin's the family lawyer, which is why he followed Grandma's instructions. She was his client, not you. Frank's finger hovered over his phone screen. His face had gone completely white. Don't bother calling him, I said. I already told him this conversation was happening today. He's expecting to hear from you around 4 p.m. He said to tell you he has copies of everything. Tim stood up, walked over to the papers, read them carefully. Jake's telling the truth, he said quietly. This is real. The county stamp, the notary seal, the signatures, it's all legitimate. Grandma knew you'd sell, I said, looking directly at Frank. She told me about the developer who'd been calling you for years, about how you'd always answer the phone when you thought she couldn't hear, about how you'd tell them to be patient, that it wouldn't be long. So she gave it to you? Sarah asked. Her voice was shrill, angry. Why you? What makes you so special? Because I'm the only one who actually took care of this place. Every Sunday for 5 years I drove 2 hours each way to visit her, to fix things, to mow the fields, to make sure she wasn't alone. We visited, Sarah started. You visited on holidays, when there was food, when you wanted something. I looked around at 40 faces, some angry, some shocked, some avoiding my eyes entirely. I was here every week, rain or shine, and Grandma noticed. This isn't fair, Sarah said. She was crying now. Real tears or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. The farm is worth $2 million. That money could help the whole family. Help how? Frank takes the $2 million, pays taxes on it, maybe clears 1.4 after everything's settled, divides it among how many people? 15? 20? Everyone gets maybe $70,000. And in 5 years nobody even remembers there was a farm here. It's just a shopping center where we used to have Sunday dinners. $70,000 could change lives, Tim said. The farm changes lives. It did for Grandma and Grandpa. It can again. Frank finally found his voice. You can't afford this property. You're a high school teacher, for Christ's sake. You make what, $45,000 a year? How are you going to pay the property taxes? The insurance? The maintenance? I'll figure it out. You'll lose it in 2 years and we'll get nothing. That's my risk to take. This is bullshit. Frank threw the papers down. I'm calling my lawyer. This is elder abuse. Undue influence. You manipulated her. Call whoever you want. But that deed is filed, notarized, and legally transferred. You want to challenge it, you'll need to prove Grandma was incompetent when she signed it. And you'll need to explain to a judge why you, as executor of her estate, spent 18 months managing a property you didn't own, letting it fall apart, and planning to sell it without ever checking the deed. Frank's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. When's the last time you actually visited the county office? I asked. Did you check the deed even once after Grandma died? side? Or did you just assume? Silence. You assumed, I said quietly, because you thought you knew everything, because you were executor, so obviously the property was yours, because Grandma always said the farm would stay in the family, so you figured she meant you. She should have meant me, Frank's voice cracked. I'm her son. You're her son-in-law, and she loved you, but she didn't trust you to keep this place. Frank grabbed his keys from the table, started toward his car. Where are you going? Sarah called after him. To my lawyer. This isn't over. I'll fight this. Good luck, I said. But the deed's already filed. The transfer happened 2 years ago. There's no estate dispute because the property wasn't part of the estate. It was never yours to sell. He stopped, turned, looked at me with pure hatred. You conned an old woman out of millions. I took care of an old woman while you planned her estate sale. There's a difference. He slammed his car door, peeled out of the driveway, gravel spraying everywhere. The backyard stayed silent for maybe 15 seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. My phone started ringing at 4:23 p.m. Frank, from his lawyer's office. I let it go to voicemail. Jake, this is Richard Morrison from Morrison & Black. I'm representing Frank Davis in this matter. We need to discuss the property transfer immediately. There are serious legal concerns about undue influence, and I deleted it. Sarah called at 4:41 p.m. You need to make this right. This is tearing the family apart. Frank tore it apart when he decided to sell Grandma's legacy for a shopping mall. That money could have helped everyone. The farm helps everyone. It just doesn't put cash in your pocket. She hung up. Tim called at 5:02 p.m. Hey, I said. Is it really yours? Legally? Yeah, a pause. Good. Frank's an asshole. He's been talking about selling for years. Grandma would have hated it. Thanks, Tim. You need help fixing the barn? I smiled. Yeah, I do. I'll come by next weekend. Frank's lawyer, Richard Morrison, sent me a formal letter on July 18th. It claimed undue influence, elder abuse, demanded I voluntarily transfer the property back to Frank's name or face a lawsuit. I forwarded it to Martin Chen. He called me at 10:23 a.m. Jake, I've read Morrison's letter. It's bullshit, but we need to respond properly. Can you come to my office tomorrow? I took a personal day from school, summer session, thankfully quiet, and met Martin at 2 p.m. Martin Chen was 63, silver hair, calm demeanor, the kind of lawyer who'd seen every family fight imaginable and stopped being surprised by human greed decades ago. They're going to argue your grandmother wasn't competent, he said, that you manipulated her. But Dr. Hoffman certified, I know, and we have her assessment, but they'll find their own doctor to say she had diminished capacity. He leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen. Morrison will file a complaint. We'll respond with the medical records, the notarization, my testimony as the witnessing attorney, and the bank notary's statement. We'll prove the transfer was legitimate. How long will that take? 6 months, maybe 8. But Jake, they're going to make this ugly. They'll question your relationship with your grandmother. They'll dig into your finances, looking for any evidence you pressured her. They'll try to paint you as greedy. I visited her every week for 5 years. I have photos, receipts from supplies I bought to fix the place, text messages with her. I have proof. Good, because you're going to need it. The lawsuit was filed on August 2nd, 2023. Frank Davis versus Jake Morrison. Complaint for constructive fraud and undue influence. It claimed I'd manipulated Grandma during her declining mental state, that I'd isolated her from family, that the property transfer was invalid because she lacked capacity to understand the consequences. Morrison requested the deed be nullified and the property returned to the estate. Martin filed our response on August 24th. It included Dr. Patricia Hoffman's cognitive assessment from April 1st, 2021, my testimony as witnessed by Martin Chen, notarization records from Claire Stevenson, 5 years of text messages between me and Grandma, photos showing my regular visits and maintenance work, receipts for supplies, materials, and repairs I'd personally funded, testimony from 3 neighbors who confirmed my weekly presence. Morrison tried to depose Dr. Baus Hoffman on September 15th. She destroyed him. Mrs. Davis was one of the sharpest people I've ever treated, Dr. Hoffman testified. At 78, her cognitive function was better than most 60-year-olds. She knew exactly what she was doing when she transferred that property. But didn't she have cancer? Morrison asked. Pancreatic cancer, diagnosed in May 2021. But the transfer happened in April. And cancer doesn't affect cognitive ability unless it metastasizes to the brain, which hers never did. Couldn't the stress of her diagnosis? No, she was lucid, articulate, and deliberate. I was present when she explained her reasoning to Jake and Martin. She wanted the farm to go to someone who would preserve it. She specifically said she didn't trust Frank to keep it. Morrison's face went red. She said that? Word for word. Frank will sell it the second I'm gone. I know he will. I want Jake to have it. The deposition transcript was brutal. Martin sent me a copy with a note. This is over. They know they can't win. On October 3rd, 2023, Richard Morrison called Martin directly. My client is willing to settle. There's nothing to settle, Martin said. The deed is legitimate. Frank is willing to drop the lawsuit if Jake pays him $500,000. Compensation for the work he put into managing the estate. Martin laughed. Frank managed nothing. He let the property decay for 18 months. Jake's not paying him a cent. Then we'll see you in court. Looking forward to it. The trial date was set for December 11th, 2023. But on November 29th, Morrison withdrew the complaint. No explanation. No settlement. Just a one-page Judge notice. Plaintiff voluntarily dismisses all claims with prejudice. Martin called me immediately. It's over. Frank gave up. Why? Because he knows he'll lose, and because dragging this out costs money he doesn't have. Morrison probably told him he's wasting legal fees on an unwinnable case. I sat down in my classroom, 5th period planning block, students at lunch, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. So, the farm is mine? The farm is yours. Legally, permanently, yours. I saw Frank one more time. December 18th, 2023. I was at the farm fixing the barn roof with Tim and 2 of my teacher friends. Frank's truck pulled into the driveway. He got out slowly, looked older than I remembered, thinner, tired. Jake, Frank, can we talk? I climbed down from the ladder. Sure. We walked to the edge of the field. Tim watched from the barn but didn't follow. I was wrong, Frank said finally. About a lot of things. I waited. Your grandmother, she knew me better than I knew myself. She knew I'd sell, and she knew you wouldn't. He looked out at the fields. I convinced myself it was about being practical, about giving everyone a piece of something valuable. But really, I just wanted the money. Yeah, I'm sorry. For the lawsuit. For what I said at the reunion. For letting this place fall apart. Okay, that's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Frank? That it's fine? That we're good? You spent 18 months planning to bulldoze Grandma's memory. You sued me for trying to save it. I'm glad you're sorry, but we're not friends. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. He started back toward his truck. Frank, he turned. If you ever want to come visit, see the place. You're welcome. This is still family property. His eyes got wet. Thanks, Jake. He drove away. I went back to the barn. You okay? Tim asked. Yeah, I am. It's been 18 months since the reunion. The barn has a new roof. The fences are mended. The fields are mowed and planted. Corn on the east 40, soybeans on the west. I hired a part-time farmhand, Carlos Mendez, who lives in the old foreman's cottage and helps maintain everything. He's teaching me things Grandpa used to know that I never learned. Tim comes by most weekends. So does my girlfriend Rachel, who grew up on a farm in Iowa and knows more about crop rotation than I ever will. We host Sunday dinners again, smaller than Grandma's. 8 or 10 people instead of 40, but the ones who come actually care about keeping this place alive. Frank hasn't visited. Sarah sends passive-aggressive texts every few months about family unity and forgiveness. I don't respond. Some people thought I should have taken Frank's settlement offer. $500,000 is a lot of money for a high school teacher, but this place isn't about money. It's about legacy, about honoring the woman who spent 50 years building something that mattered and trusted me to keep it alive. Last week I was walking the property at sunset, the fields golden in the fading light, the barn standing solid and repaired, and I thought about the family reunion, about Frank's face when he realized the property he'd been planning to sell for $2 million had never been his, about 40 relatives watching him learn that the grandson he'd called ungrateful was the only one Grandma trusted enough to fight for what she'd built. I didn't smile, didn't feel vindicated or triumphant, just grateful, because the uncle who'd spent 18 months telling everyone the family farm was his, who'd announced his plans to pave over 80 years of history for a shopping mall, had driven away in a cloud of gravel and rage, learning too late that the executor who'd never bothered to check the county records had been managing property he'd never owned, in front of 40 witnesses who'd now watched the truth explode in his face, and Grandma, wherever she was, finally got to see exactly what kind of man Frank really was, just like she'd planned all along.